There has never been a controversy that has rocked the city of Las Vegas like the one we are experiencing at the moment. A winning and powerful basketball coach, Jerry Tarkanian, and a dynamic and successful university president, Robert Maxson. Some have called it a battle between academics and athletics. Some have denied that and said it is merely a battle over power and ego. Certainly, the image of a university and a city for that matter, is also at issue here. 6 days ago, Jerry Tarkanian rescinded his resignation as UNLV basketball coach. He said he wanted to get the truth out. The truth, he said, is contained in a book written by Florida author Don Yeager titled Shark Attack. He also wrote a book titled Undue Process, a book about the NCAA, and a book that was not very flattering towards the NCAA. Through that book, he developed a relationship with Jerry Tarkanian, and out of that grew the book Shark Attack. So we see it right here. Joining us now live in our studio is Don Yeager, the author of the book. First of all, Don, the relationship with Jerry Tarkanian and the book. Some have said that Jerry must have gotten paid to do the book. He's going out on a book signing tour with you also. Does he endorse the book? Well, what is Tarkanian's status relative to the book?
Well, the book, as I was explaining to you earlier, the book, there are two issues that I think are very significant in determining whether or not someone has something at stake in a book. One is, are they getting paid? And second, do they have any editorial control over what is contained in the book? Jerry Tarkanian is not getting paid, and he had no editorial control over what is in the book. In fact, in a conversation he and I had today, he, as Tarkanian sometimes does when he's not happy about things, blasted me for how hard I went at him on the Lloyd Daniels section of the book, and in fact suggested that maybe Bob Maxson's name should have been on the cover rather than his because of that. The way it came down, I did 150 interviews in Las Vegas for this book. Tarkanian was my last interview. I spent a significant amount of time with him, about 3 days, going over the allegations and the information that I'd come up with concerning what really happened to him. At the end of that, he was outraged. He was very upset, and wanted to make sure that this got great national play. I connected him with the publicist from my publisher, who suggested that if he really wanted to get the word out, that they'd be more than happy. The one and only thing that they would do would be to cover his expenses if he were to go to any city and to discuss the book.
Okay, so if Tark hits the road and he's going to promote this book, his expenses will be paid.
Right, and even then, he's not promoting it. I mean, he's discussing it. The issue. I mean, I know it's a technicality, but he disagrees with some of what's in the book, and so he wanted to discuss the salient points that he finds are real important.
Now, he has said often that you were the one that sort of turned him around. After you had done a series of interviews, you talked with a number of media people in town, among the 150 that you talked to. He says that you took the information to him, and you sort of turned him around. Now, some might call you a muckraker here, that you have started something in this city that is damaging to the city. Some would call you, as Jerry Tarkanian has, the guy who's getting the truth out in this issue.
I guess I would have a hard time with the word muckraker. I think that what this all could have been, a nice, polite exit. I mean, had I not done some of the interviews that led to the book, and frankly, had the university administration not been so vigilant in continuing its efforts to damage Tarkanian, I think this could have been a real simple parting the ways. It didn't work out that way. I don't think I'm to blame. I think, in fact, my role in this was simply to expose what hadn't been covered by daily journalism in the city.
Over this next half hour, we're going to get specific about some of the things. What was one of the most shocking things you found in the book? Coming into Las Vegas from the outside, Tallahassee, Florida is where you're from. What was, if you could single out one or two things here real quick, that was perhaps the most shocking here?
I think probably what surprised me was that this isn't something that happened in the last year. As bad and as controversial as things have been in the last year, this is something that began years ago. There was friction even when many people in this city did not know friction existed, and it built to sandpaper quality within the last few days. Recently, and I think it's a shame. I think that's what bothered me. I think what bothers me most about all of this is that there was a great opportunity here for both sides to win, and instead, I think both sides will lose.
Is Tarkanian as naive, though, as he shows that he is and says that he is at times? He says he was bombed and attacked by the administration. Did he have any indication that some of this stuff was going on behind the scenes, if indeed it was?
Well, again, I go back to the interview, the last interview I did with Tarkanian, and when I played out for him some of the things that had occurred as early as 1984, he was so bothered by it. I mean, he left. He left me and called me the next day and said, tell me that again. Make sure. I mean, he didn't believe it. And so even as late as November of 1991, he still didn't believe that his problems were generated by the administration.
You're convinced, I believe, by reading the book that UNLV President Robert Maxson wanted Jerry Tarkanian out and was going to do what he needed to do to get Jerry Tarkanian out. Is that a correct assessment?
Absolutely.
Brad Rothermel said in 1984 that Robert Maxson came to him. One of the things I'm interested in knowing is how in 1984, as soon as Robert Maxson comes to campus, can he have that conversation, which conversation he denies that he had with Brad Rothermel, can he have that conversation with Brad Rothermel that early in the game? He had only been president here for a month and a half. That doesn't seem to be logical unless there's somebody behind him.
Two things. One, you say he denies having it. Actually, with another reporter, a network reporter who was here last week to do a story, he in fact refused to deny that he had that. I mean, he chose to leave that question still open. So I don't know that he has actually denied that conversation. But the second thing is that if you look at, I mean, he even explained to me in interviews that are used in the book, he had a negative impression about Tarkanian and UNLV athletics coming in to his acceptance of
from Houston. So he had already
right.
Your theory is that he had his mind made up when he came here.
Oh, I believe so.
Okay, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to get more specific on the book. Talk about interim athletic director Dennis Finfrock and his role, as Don Yeager says, in this situation. So stick around. Shark Attack. No commands in my IFB. Can I get an IFB test?
They were still at the top of
Bill?
the game.
Okay. Yeah, did you want to break that? I saw discusses the role of interim athletic director Dennis Finfrock. Dennis Finfrock was at UNLV for 14 months. He replaced Brad Rothermel, the athletic director at UNLV, for 10 years. And the book alleges that Finfrock was part of this conspiracy, if you will, to get Jerry Tarkanian out as basketball coach. There was no question that Tark and Finfrock did not get along previous to him coming in as interim athletic director. So the theory I will emphasize, is that President Maxson found somebody in Dennis Finfrock who could do the job. In fact, one national publication referred to Finfrock, the national sports magazine, called Finfrock the point man, the point guard, in Maxson's attempt to get Jerry Tarkanian out as basketball coach. And here's what the book contains concerning Dennis Finfrock. The book charges that university officials, in particular former interim athletic director Dennis Finfrock, leaked damaging information to the media about Tarkanian on a regular basis. It's a story that News 13 has reported many times. And former Review Journal sports editor Bob Sands is quoted many times in the book saying he and other writers and broadcasters in this city received leaks from Finfrock. The book mentions one particular time where Finfrock asked RJ photographers to shoot pictures of Jerry Tarkanian's seats in the arena. The book alleges that Finfrock was trying to find Richie Perry in one of those seats, which they never did, so the pictures were never run in the paper. Former K-News sports director Rich Martin describes the situation this way. He says, "I think the media was played with. The whole thing, from start to finish, was too neat. It was a slick package, too tidy. They got us all into it. It was like an orchestra." One question remains here. Was Finfrock leaking this information on his own, or was he instructed to do so by UNLV President Robert Maxson? President Maxson has denied that he was behind the Finfrock leaks. Assistant Athletic Director Tina Kunzer Murphy finds that hard to believe because of a conversation she says she had with Finfrock. Murphy says he, meaning Finfrock, said to me one day, "You know, it's the best thing. He, meaning Tarkanian, has got to go." He told me at a later time that everything he does, he clears through Maxson. Everything. Everything he does is cleared and the president knows everything, is what Dennis said to her. A couple of questions here involving that now. Dennis Finfrock didn't make it too much of a secret among local media that if you wanted dirt, so to speak, on Tarkanian, you could go to him and get it, did he?
No, and in fact, I think one of the interesting things, and Rich Martin referred to it in his quote, was that Finfrock actually did a pretty smart job As a reporter for 9 years, I know that you're always willing to accept a leak, especially in the midst of a big story, because that leak may give you, at least for a day, a lead on the story. Finfrock gave everyone, or most everyone, a little piece of the story, a little tidbit here, a little tidbit there, and that did two things for him. Number one, it created, no one ever got the full story. But secondly, it also meant that a number of reporters, since we generally as reporters don't reveal who our sources are, a number of reporters were committed not to ever spill the beans on Dennis Finfrock. I think at the end of it, though, several reporters here in town realized when it was all over, when Tark had resigned, that they had been used. That that in that day-to-day hustle and bustle to beat the story out, that Finfrock had in fact taken advantage of their aggressiveness.
What's wrong with a leak now and then? What is wrong with it in the sense, as reporters, we get leaks often. Most of our stories come from leaks.
Certainly, as a reporter, I took and reported many leaks. Now, what's wrong with it as a reporter? Nothing. I mean, I think that's our job. What's wrong with it as a personnel policy for a senior administrator of a university? It's terrible. I mean, it's absolutely, it's unforgivable that rather than approaching your employee who you believe has a certain problem, or there's a problem surrounding his basketball program, rather than approaching that employee with that problem and trying to solve it internally, leaking the information to the outside so that it damages the employee, chips away at his credibility. Representative Jim Bilbray described it to me as taking, he could see it, Tark had taken 1,000 cuts from Dennis Finfrock and others. He actually never got the gut wound, but with 1,000 cuts he bled to death. And that's what many people believe led to the ultimate
And you point out in the book that sometimes the leaks were misleading and did not have a whole lot of content.
Well, certainly one of them, in fact, that I detail pretty explicitly in the book, had to do with a television reporter from another station who was given by Finfrock the idea to do a story about the cars that basketball players were driving, and the fact that Finfrock would open an investigation of those cars if the reporter asked the question. Well, the reporter jumped on the story. Finfrock opened an investigation, creating another story, and in fact, those cars had already been checked out by the NCAA and by the university.
But you're saying the purpose was to get a lead story and a headline,
and to create one more grain of doubt or beach of doubt concerning the basketball program.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about the media's role in all of this when we return. Back live at our Channel 13 News studios. We are talking about the book Shark Attack, controversial book written by author Don Yeager from Tallahassee, Florida. Don, we talked in the last segment about the media and their role in this, and Rich Martin talked about how he felt the media was being used in this. Was the media, do you think, being used in this, or were they a willing participant at times in this? And some have alleged, and you fringe on alleging that the media was a willing participant in some cases in this book.
It's a really tough question. I think that because you have to get into the minds of the media, and I don't know that I can do that. I do believe that there are some people in the media in this very city that wanted nothing more than to see Jerry Tarkanian out of coaching at UNLV, and had taken a very definite position, standing arm in arm with Robert Maxson, President Maxson, in doing that. And I think those were people who were in senior leadership positions in the media in this sense. I don't think I experienced in my conversations with any day-to-day reporters that kind of let's go get him, let's make sure he's out of here kind of enthusiasm. I think that their enthusiasm was the enthusiasm for the story, and it is a heck of a story. And it was the story that led many newscasts and ended up on page one of many newspapers.
Yeah. You take a few shots at the Review-Journal in here at times. And I talked with Sherman Frederick on the phone yesterday, the editor of the Review-Journal. He was disturbed that you had never contacted him on this story and still took shots at their newspaper.
I I can only say that I felt very confident, given the many people I talked to from within that newspaper, that what I said was true. And in fact, I don't think he denies anything that was said in the book. Now, should I have called him? He might have been one person that I should have called first. One thing I was very careful to do. I don't think anyone who is taken to task in the book is truly caught by surprise, because everything that I had to say, or every question that I raised in the book, was raised with the person who I discussed, whether that be Finfrock or Sheila Strike-Bola or others.
All right. You have a chapter there also on Lloyd Daniels. You have a chapter on Lloyd Daniels, and also talking about Lloyd Daniels. You also talk a little bit about President Maxson and his thoughts on the Lloyd Daniels situation. No single athlete has caused more controversy to UNLV than Lloyd Daniels, a great athlete who suffered from dyslexia and a lack of academic motivation. He couldn't read past the 3rd grade level, but qualified for admission to UNLV thanks to 12 credits at a California junior college. Daniels was adopted by then UNLV assistant coach Mark Warkentine. In the book Shark Attack, author Don Yeager reveals for the first time that UNLV President Robert Maxson approved the Daniels guardianship. In the book, Maxson says, quote, "Brad Rothermel came to see me and he told me about his," meaning Daniels, "desperate situation and that he had been sort of abandoned. He came to me on the guardianship, and as I look at it in retrospect, I probably should have known that he sensed this thing might become an issue." Maxson adds that Rothermel told him nothing about Daniels' academic problems in their conversation, but he does lay a large portion of the blame of bringing Daniels to UNLV upon himself. Maxson is quoted as saying, "He didn't ask all the questions that I should have. And also, I tell you what, 90% of this is not a good commentary on me." Now, a lot of people, Don, I think were surprised to hear that President Maxson had a knowledge of Lloyd Daniels, and out of 350 student athletes, as it's mentioned in the book, that this was the one that Brad Rothermel brought to him, that he should have been alerted to that.
Sure, and in fact, I think that if you were to take the top 5 things that the book, that people in Las Vegas should know about the book, certainly the fact that the president actually approved the guardianship of Lloyd Daniels is one, because no one's ever told that story before. The president certainly hasn't. And
even Tarkanian hasn't. Tarkanian is still not to this day, I have not heard him say, "Oh, by the way, here's my excuse for Lloyd Daniels. The president knew about him." He still lays the blame upon himself.
And frankly, I think that's important that he does that. I don't think you should lay the blame on the president. I mean, the fact is, but the president did play a role. The role in bringing Lloyd Daniels here was never. He took a role in bringing Lloyd Daniels here, but never took a role in accepting the penalty for it, the price for it.
All right, had the opportunity to talk with President Maxson on a number of occasions during this. So one of our news reporters, Bill French, had the opportunity to talk with President Maxson earlier this week to get his thoughts really on the controversy and what has happened here at UNLV and in Las Vegas.
Let's face facts on this issue. And I've said this before, but let's face the facts on this issue. It wasn't the university, it wasn't the administration that wrote that devastating Newsday article about Lloyd Daniels, suggesting numerous NCAA violations at UNLV. It was not the administration that brought 40 NCAA allegations upon us, and it was certainly not the university that put 3 basketball players in a hot tub with a convicted sports fixer. And let me tell you something else for the record. And it was not the university that made these sorry facts public. Now, the idea that nothing ever happened is, it's another way to divert attention from the mess that we've had here, that others have had to come in and clean up, and this continuous attack upon the university is vicious, it's wrong, it's dishonest. It's just plain unfair.
All right, when we come back, we will have more on the book, Shark Attack. Well, then drop Tark from the end.
Are you sure?
A couple of minutes left here with Don Yeager, author of the book Shark Attack. Don, is there a story, is there an incident in the book that proves to you that there was, as you have said, a conspiracy or an agenda, an effort to force Jerry Tarkanian out as coach?
I think that one of the things that really struck me was some of the incidents that occurred in the week, the 12 days after the Review Journal printed the hot tub pictures last spring. One of those real key issues was a Tuesday night meeting in which Brad Book called Tark into his office, brought Maxson into the office too. They didn't inform Tarkanian's lawyers about it, and one of the things they did was they handed Tarkanian pictures of Richard Perry sitting behind the bench, pictures which 2 days later would be leaked to the Review Journal. During the course of that meeting, they told Tark that he was either going to have to resign or he was going to have to be fired, that the press would never let up. I think that really confirmed to me that this was an agenda, and it was if the agenda wasn't going to become complete, then the next step would be taken.
All right, a very fascinating book, Shark Attack. HarperCollins is the publisher, written by Don Yeager, and Don, it's really has set off a firestorm here in Las Vegas. I think no matter what side of the issue you're on, you will find some interesting things, at least in the book.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for joining us here in Las Vegas, live at our Channel 13 studios, and good luck to you in the book sales, I guess, from here. We'll see what happens. What the next step will be, who knows, in this issue, because it is a story that develops rapidly.
Well, there is a paperback contract on the book to come out in the fall, and I've got to add a new chapter now.
Yes, a lot of this book was written before the videotaping, actually. So this is a production of Channel 13 News. Thank you for joining us here tonight.